All right, so we're doing a little bit of a review of the volume of a cylinder, sphere, and cone. You've all seen these before. We should be a little bit better with these by now, but we're just going to do a little bit of review to make sure we're all on the same place and make sure that we all understand the material as best as we can by now. So, some very important information is obviously our volume equations. So for our first one, it's going to be a cylinder, which is pi r squared h. We are going to get our cone, which is 1/3 pi r squared h, and our sphere, which is 4/3 pi r to the third. Of course, when we're going to be working on our quiz this week, it's open notes, so you should get these equations right to make sure that you get your answer correct. Some do's and don'ts, so these are very, very important, so I want you to write these down, so when you're taking the quiz, you remember this. So do label everything in cubic units. And when I say cubic units, when I write this on your assignments, I mean cubic feet, cubic inches, cubic centimeters. All those labels help us to know you're talking about volume. If you just put inches, we're not going to think that's volume. We're going to think that's length or width. We have to be proper with our labeling so everyone knows what you're talking about. For me personally, I am okay with you rounding pi to 3.14. In other instances, they tell you not to do this, so it's more proper, but I think it's easiest just to type in your calculator times 3.14. So for me, whenever you see pi, just do times 3.14. And also you must divide your diameter by 2 to get the radius. We know that the diameter is 2 times the radius, so to get the radius from the diameter, you divide by 2. And every single equation that you just saw on the last slide, it has radius, has nothing to do with diameter. So if I tell you the diameter is this, or you look at a shape and you see the full line, which is the diameter, then clearly you must divide that by 2 to get your radius to be able to plug in. Don't round decimals. So when I was looking at a lot of your assignments, what you guys decided to do was take 1/3, put it into 0.33. And I feel like that's because I told you you could round pi, but for these decimals, you cannot round. They're not the same as our fractions. So for example, if I had 1/3, do not round to 0.33. That gives a totally different answer than what we need. 1/3 is technically 0.3333 and so on and so forth. It's repeating. So keep it as 1/3. So when you're putting in your calculator, do 1 divided by 3 times this, times this, times this, and that will give you your proper answer. I also saw when we were doing 4/3, you did 1.3 repeating and chopped that off and made it 1.33. That gives you a totally different answer. Don't put it in decimal form. Keep it as 4 divided by 3. Also, do not act as if a hemisphere and a sphere are the same things. They're not. A hemisphere is half a sphere, which you guys saw in our sphere volume activity, and you guys got that correct. You guys were good, but we're having some issues when we're doing the volume. So you would do the hemisphere the same way as you would do your sphere. The only thing that's different is at the end, you're going to divide the volume by 2. So we have to be observant of that, and we'll see that within this video. So let's try some problems. What shape is this? It's a cylinder, right? So now we're going to want to solve the volume. So we know the volume of a cylinder, as we saw on the previous slide, is pi r squared h. We look here, we know that 6 is our height. It's going up and down. That's our height. We can see here that our diameter is 10. Like I said before, do we ever want our diameter? No, we want the radius. So we take our diameter divided by 2 and get our radius as 5. So now we just plug that in. Our volume equals pi times 5 squared times our 6. Let's put that into our calculator. So we'll have 3.14 times 5 times 5 times 6, which gives us 471. So we'll have volume equals 471. Am I missing something? Yes, my units. So we want cubic inches or inches cubed, same exact thing. All right, not bad. Let's move along. What shape is this? A cone, yes. So I want you to solve for the volume. So as you can tell, our height is 4, our radius is 12. So let's plug it in. We know our formula is 1/3 pi r squared h. If you haven't noticed already, our volume of a cone is 1/3 the volume of a cylinder. Very interesting information here. So now let's plug in everything we have. We'll have volume equals 1/3 pi, our r is 12, our h is 4. So we have to be really careful here is that sometimes we get a little confused by looking at this. Your radius is always going to be the number that's on the circular part. So you see how there's one huge big circle here? Your radius is always going to be the part that's on the circle. This is not on the circle. This is hitting the point and touching the circle. So that has to be the height. So let's plug it into our calculator. What I like to do is the 3.14 times 12 times 12 times 4. Get that number, and then multiply it by 1 divided by 3. And I get my volume as 602.88. We'll say cubic units because we are not told what units it is. All right. What shape is this? A sphere. Solve for the volume. All right, let's take a look at this together now. So, what is this? This is my diameter. So we're basically told that our diameter is 42. So our radius must be what? Must be 21. Right. So if our radius of 21, we just plug it in. So our volume equals 4/3 r to the third with our pi. All right, can't figure out the pi. Let's plug that in. V equals 4/3 pi 21 to the third. So this is going to be a huge number with our radius is 21, but that's okay. So let's plug that in. We'll have, I like to do the 3.14 times 21 times 21 times 21. Big number. Then we want to do it times 4 divided by 3. And we get that huge number. So we're going to have our volume as 38,772.72 cubic centimeters. So 38,772.72 cubic centimeters. Big number, that's all right. All right. What shape is this? A hemisphere. Solve for the volume. All right, so like I said before, a hemisphere is just half a sphere. So let's look at the volume of a sphere. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. We have our r is 8. Plug it in. All right, let's put that into our calculator. 3.14 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 4 divided by 3 gives us a volume of 2143.57. Am I done? No, this is just a volume of a sphere. We want that hemisphere. So we must take this and divide it by 2. And a good way to remember is if we go like this, we'd have the finished part of the sphere, right? We just took a sphere and divided it in half, cut it in half. So do the same thing with the volume, and you get your volume as 1,071.79 cubic centimeters. This one I feel like is very tricky for some of us, so make sure that you're really paying attention to the steps I do. If you're confused, please email me. Please reach out as soon as possible so I can go over this with you before your quiz. All right, so this question was on our last assignment. I was trying to quote unquote trick you just to see if you're able to do this on your own. I gave you 4 answer choices that were none of the answers. And a lot of us got one of the answers, and that's what I thought was going to happen. I knew we were not going to cut the hemisphere into the half, like the sphere into the half that it was supposed to be. So I want you to try this one more time and see what you get. All right, let's do it together now. So we see that our diameter is 12. If our diameter is 12, we know that our radius is 6. So let's do one shape at a time. I'm going to do the cylinder. I feel like that one's the easiest. So the bottom part here is a cylinder. So we have our R as 6, our H as 13. So cylinder equals pi r squared h. Plug what we know. Pi 6 squared times 13. So we have 3.14 times 6 times 6 times 13. That gives us 1,469.52 cubic inches. All right. Now we have our hemisphere up here. We have the radius as 6, like I said before. So we have our hemisphere. And we know that the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And at the end, we're going to divide this by 2 to get the hemisphere. So let's plug in 4/3 pi r is 6 to the third. Put it into our calculator. So I do the pi, 3.14 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 4 divided by 3 gives us 904.32. Now, like I said before, we want to divide by 2. And we get 452.16 cubic inches. Now we know because there are 2 shapes on top of each other, we must add these 2. So we're going to do 1469.52 plus 452.16. And we get 1921.68 cubic inches. And that would be our final answer. And yes, that answer was not one of the choices, but like I said, I was trying to see if we understood it rather than, oh, this one's the closest, oh, this one's this. All right. Make sure you understand this. You will be seeing a question like this on their quiz. Once again, if you're confused, please email me. All right, so a spherical ball, can't say that word, has a diameter of 12 inches. The ball has a slow leak in which air escapes at the rate of 4.5 cubic inches per second. How long would it take the ball to deflate? All right, so it says it has a diameter of 12. Once again, as soon as we see diameter is 12, we divide it by 2 to get the radius as 6. So let's do the volume. 4/3 pi r to the third. 4/3 pi 6 to the third. So we just did this on the last one, so we should get the same answer. Just double check. Times 6 times 6 times 6. And that's what our pi times it, so 3.14. Times our 5 divided by, or 4 divided by 3. I'm sorry for that mistake. 4 divided by 3. So we get our volume as 904.32. All right, now it's going to be our cubic inches. Before, what we did was divided by 2 because we had a hemisphere. We don't have a hemisphere, so we're just going to keep it as is because it's a sphere. So it says that we need to see how long it would take to deflate the ball. So we already have our volume. This is not our final answer. And anytime I told you we see this, you take the number, throw on an X to it, and set it equal to our volume. Divide by the 4.5 because we want to solve for x. Do this every single time. So take that volume divided by 4.5, and we'll get our x as 200.96 seconds because it says that it's inches per second. So we have seconds. Just to reiterate, every single time we have this problem, what you're going to do is set it equal with the volume and the rate with an x attached to it. So basically all you're doing is taking the volume and dividing it by the rate. And that's how you find your x value. Finally, we have a can of soda in a cylinder shape that has a height of 3.5 feet and a diameter of 10 inches. What is the volume of 4 soda cans? Think about this, try this, see how we do. All right, let's try this together. So it says a cylinder. So we know the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. We're given the height is 3.5, the diameter is 10, so the radius is 5. Plug it in. Pi 5 squared times 3.5. Let's put it into our calculator. 3.14 times 5 times 5 times 3.5 gives us 274.75 cubic inches. But that's for 1 soda can, right? We want 4. So you're going to take it, multiply it by 4. And for 4 soda cans, it would be 1099 cubic inches. All right, so these are the types of problems that will be on your quiz. I say if you were confused on any of these, to go back, see what you did that's different than what I did. Email me. Also look back at the past review we did last week. See what answers you got right, what answers you got wrong. I highlighted the correct ones. I highlighted the ones that should be the correct answer. So see what you did wrong. Email me if you have questions. I will certainly give you the correct steps. And just try your best. All right.